Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and I'm going on a long journey of trying to complete every single Game Boy Advance game in North America. This is the story of the highs, the lows, and all the silly stuff in between for the Game Boy Advance completion experience. This is GB Ace. Game number 37, Mario Party Advance. Well guys, if you're seeing this next game, you're probably thinking either one of two things. One, alright, Slim is the Mario Party guy, this should be great! Or two, this game sucks. Okay, I may have over-exaggerated that second one a bit, so my apologies for stooping down to that lower level. But please understand that I'm actually in a very interesting camp with this game, and I'll be explaining why shortly. Mario Party Advance released in North America in March of 2005, developed by Hudson Soft and published by, well, Nintendo of course. At this point in the Mario Party series, Nintendo had released Mario Party 6 on the Nintendo GameCube a couple months prior, so the series was still in what is commonly referred to as the classic age of Mario Party, a golden age if you will. The age of it being known for being a multiplayer board game with minigames that would often test the boundaries of friendship between anyone who decides, hey, let's all get together and play a rousing game of Mario Party. That sounds like a great bonding experience, right? So, naturally, with how well the series had been doing on console, it only made sense to do a handheld installment too. However, even though the Nintendo DS was out at this point, it was probably even fresher than Mario Party 6 was, so Game Boy Advance is what they had to work with. So how did this game do compared to the other Mario Party titles? Not well. Yeah, this game is often cited as not just the worst rated Mario Party game, but also just one of the lowest rated Mario games in the entire franchise. Heck, even Mario Pinball Land, which we'll get to later in this challenge, is rated higher than this game, and it's a freaking pinball game for crying out loud. Which, nothing wrong with pinball, it's just hard to imagine that offering more variety than a Mario Party game. So, what exactly happened here then? Well, Hudson Soft decided to change the formula a little with this title, and it changed from a multiplayer board game to a single-player fetch quest adventure with some minigames thrown in the mix for good measure to keep that Mario Party charm. And yeah, it was quite a big departure from what people were likely expecting and hoping for. But let me be real for a second. I really don't think multiplayer could have worked for this title. Remember, this was on the Game Boy Advance. At this point in time, in order to do multiplayer, you had to have multiple GBAs, multiple copies of the game, and be connected to everybody through a Game Link cable. Yeah, I'm not convinced anybody would have enjoyed that experience, even if the game stuck with its series roots. Just seems very inconvenient, and the second a single player tugs away their system in anger, there goes the entire game session out the window. As a result, I honestly believe Hudson Soft made a reasonable decision here to focus on a more single-player experience. And yes, they had done story modes before in other games, but that was with the multiplayer gameplay style. They tried something much different here, and I guess the idea just didn't really resonate with people, or, well, so it would seem anyway. What do I personally think about this game, though? Well, I think this game gets treated rather unfairly, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying this game is amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't even think this is the worst Mario Party game. Give me this over some of the 3DS games, and I honestly believe I'd be getting the better deal, and to be blunt, I kinda get the feeling a lot of people hate this game, not because they played it and disliked it, but more so just because the game is different from what they would have wanted from a Mario Party game, which I don't really think is a fair way to judge a game in that fashion. You could make the argument that it just shouldn't have been called Mario Party, and, you know, that's fair, but that's also just a different argument altogether. In fact, I feel like that's just ripping a page straight from all the essayists of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, the whole, this game is not a bad game, but it shouldn't have been tied to this series argument. But at the end of the day, it was, and there's not really much we can do about that now, can we? So what exactly is going on here? Well, this game takes place in an area of the Marioverse called Party World, a location filled to the brim with minigames and gadgets. However, everyone's favorite Koopa King, Yo, decides to arrive and crash the party, knocking loose all the gadgets, taking some for himself, and spreading the rest around a big area called Shroom City. As a result, we need to go around Shroom City and procure all the gadgets so we can return them and put a stop to Bowser's chaos. Shroom City is easily identifiable as the main single-player mode of the game, and is where we'll be spending much of all of our time in the process. There are other modes too, but they honestly don't really even become available until you unlock a good portion of the minigames anyway. And at that point, they are really just extra content, so for our completion goal, all we have to do is simply just complete Shroom City, and you pretty much have to do 100% to complete it anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do here. I know I said that I would try to do bonus stipulations for games I completed before, whether they were done as Let's Plays or other stream playthroughs, but I couldn't really come up with anything for this game in particular, so I just decided to go for just a simple story completion here, so I hope you understand. Also, fun fact, as of this playthrough, you can now find 4 playthroughs of me playing through this game on YouTube. 1 Let's Play on this channel, 2 playthroughs from Thank God It's Mario Party Friday on my Twitch Stream Archive channel, both of which were done within the last 3 years, and then this run for GB Ace, also on my archive channel. Aside from randomizers, this is probably the game I've played through most on YouTube at this point, which is really interesting when you think about it. Before we get started, though, we had to make our Party World Passport, a small questionnaire that also kind of serves a purpose as a file creator and create a character designer. I wouldn't say this is really too relevant in the grand scheme of things, though, as I think the only purpose of this is to showcase and share this info with other people you connect via Game Link cable. Kind of like the party cards in Mario Party Superstars and Super Mario Party Jamboree. But hey, I did give some shocking answers to some of these questions. Ooh, maybe I gave a little too much information on this last one. Rawr. When you select Shroom City, you get the choice of 4 different characters to play as: Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Yoshi. Now, this is another thing a lot of people have a problem with when it comes to this game, and that's the fact that there are only 4 characters to play as. Honestly, this doesn't really even bother me that much, just because I've just always been more realistic in knowing that the characters you play as don't really affect gameplay, or rather skill performance, in these Mario Party games, so it's rather inconsequential who you play as. I get people wanting to play as your favorite characters though, so don't get me wrong on that, but I don't really hold it against this game for not going the extra mile here either. With that being said though, there are some reasons for picking a certain character for this mode though, but I'll get into those details a bit later. So once you enter the world of Shroom City, it's time to actually see what this game is all about. The entirety of this adventure takes place on a giant board game map, and you control your character in a car who has to essentially roll a dice every turn for movement, and you follow the paths forward based on the number you get. Each turn you use a mushroom to move your car, and if you run out of mushrooms, your car will be unable to move, and your game will end, saving whatever progress you made, and forcing you to begin at the start space again if you play again, just with all the quests you completed being done already. And you basically complete the game by completing all the quests, and therefore unlocking and reobtaining all the gadgets in the process. Now, like I said, this map is huge, and is filled to the brim with multiple pathways and directions you can go. So whenever you roll the dice, you actually have a lot of options when it comes to where you want to go and where you want to land. There are a few different types of spaces you can land on, like a dice space, which will allow you to roll another dice to keep moving without using an additional mushroom, an M space, which will force you into playing a minigame, but if you win, you'll actually receive more mushrooms to extend your playtime, and a minus square, which just flat out gets rid of an additional mushroom of yours. That's really about it, honestly, but to be fair, that's really all you need. With how this board is laid out, it's fairly easy to manipulate a route and keep things moving though, even if the most direct path has you landing on a minus space or something, as sometimes you could get lucky enough to land on a dice on the other path and keep a nice dice streak going as you move around the board and try to get a different space that isn't the space you're trying to avoid. It's honestly pretty clever for such a simplistic system. Oh, and if you don't really land on very many minigame spaces, don't worry. Every 3 turns you get drawn into a minigame anyway, so you'll have plenty of chances to earn a plethora of extra mushrooms. It's honestly really hard to end your game once you build up a strong enough mushroom buffer, so keep that in mind. I suppose the last thing to highlight are the actual locations on the map, signified by boxes with a star icon and an arrow pointing to them. These are where the many different quests of this game will take place. If you arrive at one of these locations, you can choose to go inside and talk with an NPC character there. When you do, you'll be debriefed on a problem they are currently having, and you'll have a chance to accept their quest in an effort to fix their issue. These quests can vary from playing a minigame or doing a challenge of some kind, doing some kind of fetch quest that will involve you going to a different location to do something else, or get an item of some kind and then return, the latter of which is probably more common than anything else. So be ready for a lot of back and forth on the world map, just saying that right now out of the gate. So, for example, when you play as Mario, you get a kind of brief tutorial on how this works by visiting the location closest to you, Goomba's house. Goomba asks you to go to the train station to pick up a train ticket for him. So you leave the house after accepting his quest, go to the train station, negotiate for the ticket, and once you get it, bring it back to Goomba to complete the quest. See, it's really that simple. Although every quest will vary based on what you actually have to accomplish, because sometimes you can just take care of the quest without even needing to leave the original location in the first place, while other times you may have to travel across the entire freaking map, and back, mind you, so it really depends on the quest more than anything. So for more examples, we visit Chain Chomp, who is very desperate to have a duel with us, so we challenge him to a duel minigame. We then visit a Bob-omb who asks us to find out the secret password to be part of the secret Bob-omb Society, which we can easily do by going to the item shop, purchasing a Bob-omb figurine, and learning the password firsthand from the shopkeeper there. Then going back to the Bob-omb and sharing the password in the process, giving us 2 more gadgets for our collection with both of those quests combined. It's also worth mentioning that the Bob-omb also gives us a hint for another quest as well, that we have to discover later, but more about that then when it becomes relevant. With 3 gadgets acquired, we get a quick scene with Bowser, who decides to open up one of his warp pipes. Each of these pipes will lead to a secluded part of the city where we can complete a quest involving Bowser, which will usually require doing some challenge to prove ourselves, followed by a minigame of some sort. Bowser has his own gadgets that we will need to take back from him, so we'll need to visit all of these warp pipes at some point. But I usually end up waiting to do this at the very end of the game, so I can do them all at once. It just makes more sense that way, at least in my opinion. So while I'm still playing as Mario, I decide to make it my primary mission to get to the jungle area on the other side of the map. The reason being, there is a quest in this area that requires you to play as either Mario or Luigi. Otherwise, you flat out just can't do it. There's also a quest that is Peach-specific and Yoshi-specific, but nothing specific for just Mario or just Luigi individually. But there is one that requires you to play as one or the other, so I need to get over there while I'm at least playing as one of them. And in Mario's case, the location is a little closer to him, so after a couple of turns, long movements, and a couple of minigames in the process, I make it to the Spear Guy Thicket, and get challenged to a minigame where Mario takes out many years of pent-up aggression of needing to rescue her out on the princess herself, and obtains another gadget from the Shy Guy tribesman. Also, since I am in the jungle, I decide to take on what I consider one of the more annoying quests of the entire game, for a couple of reasons actually. The jungle just so happens to be the residence of Pedal Guy, a guy who is so clearly infatuated with another character who lives in Shroom City. So we decide, for some reason, to help him out with his problems of love. So we head back all the way to the city again, go to the mushroom condo, and visit Flutter, the girl of his desires, just for the weirdo himself to show up anyway, profess his love to her without her even knowing him, and basically prove why people should never really come on too strong with people they are interested in. I mean, at least they handled this better than the Robopon 2 alien love story thing, but still, what the fudge is with these people sometimes? Either way, Pedal Guy is still convinced there is a non-zero chance that he can end up with her, so he's gonna keep being a creep and keep trying, but at least gives us a gadget because we tried to help, even though we didn't really do anything. which I wouldn't have wanted to do anything in the first place because this guy's a creep. Also, get used to seeing this theme, by the way. There are so many quests that involve love in this game. There must be some Cupid or region of romance involved or something, I swear. In fact, not too long after I finished that quest, thankfully I didn't have to go all the way back to the jungle again, I actually decided to focus on a related task by revisiting Flutter to complete her individual objective. And it seems she has her eye on, well, an eye. Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Flutter is in love with the one and only Mr. Eye, the resident eyeball of the horror section of Shroom City. And after we pay a visit to his neck of the woods to inform him of his new crush, it seems he is not really interested in her either, but rather has a crush on someone else. So he asks us to help him let her down gently. Well, I gotta say, Flutter at least handled this a bit better than what Petal Guy did. The Mushroom Condo is actually one of very few locations that actually has a couple of quests involved with it, as there are numerous floors you can visit when you go there. If you go to one of the floors, you can find the musicians known as the Kamek Crew, who are looking for a venue or stadium they can perform at. And after looking at the map, you can see there is a very nice stadium in the desert area you can take a look at. So, by leaving, talking to the venue holder, who also just so happens to be a big fan of the group and more than delighted at the prospect of them performing there, we can return to the hotel and complete that quest for another gadget. We can also pay a visit to the rooftops, where Fly Guy is trying to summon a UFO and needs our help to do so, which is basically a slight variation of the minigame Shy Guy Says from other Mario Party games. Fun fact, I actually struggled with this challenge the very first time I played this game, but it was because I was playing on an emulator where I wasn't sure how to remap my controls, and for some reason the A and B inputs on my keyboard were swapped around, which really messed with my perception here. It's honestly not too hard though, just swap the flags whenever you need to and you should be good. The final quest at the condo actually kind of works in conjunction with the Bob-omb Society we interacted with earlier, as, if you remember correctly, the Bob-omb we talked to gave us a hint about how to find the leader. Sure enough, if you look at the list of floors, there is a secret fifth option we can select that doesn't have a name, and sure enough, the King Big Bob-omb is here and ready to give us the goods. Assuming we beat him in a dice minigame duel anyway, which I think this is random, so there is a chance you can lose, and if you do, you've just gotten bad RNG and you have to try again. Yep, even this game can't escape the almighty juggernaut of luck in the Mario Party series, huh? When you do eventually win this game, though, you get rewarded with one of the gadgets, and you can finally move away from the Mushroom Condo. On the subject of luck, you will also find a couple of different casino locations located throughout the city, and each one of these places will force you to play a luck-based minigame for a gadget, where if you win, or meet a certain monetary threshold, you'll receive the gadget. Otherwise, you could find yourself burning a lot of mushrooms retrying these games. I actually got pretty lucky with these during my playthrough, and I think I actually first tried most of them. The one exception was the first one I did, though, which I swear I spent like 12 minutes on because luck was just not on my side at that moment. In fact, my luck was so bad, I actually ended up letting my chat play for me instead, and each time I did that, they actually earned a payout, so yeah, I guess sometimes it does help to listen to chats. When they aren't backseating, of course. Anyway, the city portion of the board has two casinos right next to each other, so two very quick gadgets you can obtain in the process. Also, you may notice I'm not really talking about the minigames that much. I'll be real with you guys, I have an entire video where I ranked all the minigames in Mario Party Advance, so if you do want to get my feelings and impressions on those, do yourself a favor and check out that video for my analysis. For the most part though, I do think this game is a pretty solid collection of minigames. The casino games are probably the worst though, just because they are literally almost all games of chance and risk and luck, and from my Mario Party ranking series, you guys probably know how I feel about those kinds of games. It's at this point that I realize that I'm still playing as Mario for some reason, but I'm kind of on a roll and still in the city for that matter, so I decided to actually complete a few more quests before I do finally make a swap, just in the interest of not needing to cover so much travel distance with the other characters. After all, each character does have a different starting location, so it just makes more sense that way. I visit the pink Bob-omb who wants a flower, particularly one from the desert, and since this piranha plant is the only one that qualifies as anything plant-like, it must be the thing the lovely lass is looking for. So we take it to her, and she is more than pleased with what she gets. I then pay a visit to Koopa Troopa of the Koopa Bank, where there's unfortunately been a break-in. Enter Detective Shroomlock of Toadland Yard to help solve the mystery. He's a character you'll see from time to time to solve one of the many mystery-related quests of the game. Quests that will kind of test your brain a little more than your actual skill, believe it or not. For this mystery in particular, Koopa and Shroomlock have narrowed the culprits down to 3 suspects, all of which were in the bank at the time of the robbery, so now you have to go visit all 3 of them and find out their story, to see if something doesn't line up with what actually happened during the crime. It's a little annoying that you have to visit each of those characters' locations just to get their alibis, but at least everything is in close proximity here. 2 of them are still in the city area, while Mr. I is just in the beginning of the adjacent area, so even that isn't too far out of the way. Basically, the answer to this mystery is that it was Paratroopa, as apparently when the robbery happened, the bank was pitch black and no one could see what was happening, except for Paratroopa, who claims he saw a gleam of coins, which wouldn't have made sense otherwise. For solving this mystery, we receive another gadget, and apparently Paratroopa just gets let off the hook because he claims he only stole the coins as a joke and didn't mean for anything to happen, which... yeah, whatever. I'm sure you would have still said something if you weren't caught red-handed, or red-shelled in this case. At this point, there are only 3 more quests in the city area, but on my way to finish them, I end up encountering perhaps one of the game's biggest annoying points for me, the Bowser and Koopa Kid interruptions. This can happen where, while you're traveling around the map, sometimes Koopa Kid will show up to mess with your progress, and he can do this in a couple of ways too. Sometimes he'll force a minigame on you, where if you lose, you'll lose more mushrooms. Sometimes he can block a path or intersection with a boulder, forcing you to go a different direction. Or in the case of this encounter, just flat out warps you to a different location. Really annoying if you're in the middle of a quest, or just trying to clean up an area that's almost done. This warp took me all the way back to the jungle again, but since I had to come back to the jungle later anyway with Yoshi, not to mention Peach also starts there really wasn't much incentive to being Mario anymore, so I just did the adjacent casino quest and ended my current run to switch to another character. Sucks I don't have those mushrooms anymore, but it is what it is. But yeah, these Bowser interruptions are admittedly kind of garbage, and they only get worse the more you progress, since they can happen more frequently as you get further into the game. Really annoying during those quests where you have a long path to travel to and back from, so brace yourselves for those when they happen. I decided to pick Peach next just to get her quest over with, and I honestly didn't even bother with anything else either. I literally just picked her, took her to the horror section, had her meet up with Mr. I, who, if you haven't guessed yet, Peach is the girl he's interested in, and after paying a visit to him and getting a gadget, we were already done with her, so I ended the game with her and switched over to Yoshi. Yeah, even though I've mellowed out quite a bit with Peach over the years, I'm still not a huge fan of her. Sorry, Peach fans, stans, fanboys, and stanboys. So I went ahead and decided to pick Yoshi next, the last character that has a unique quest involved with him. I had planned to switch to Luigi at some point, especially if I somehow encountered a dead game with Yoshi, but only after I did the quest first. I admittedly didn't make this a priority goal though, so we'll see how that works out. Anyway, Yoshi starts in the horror section, so before I head to the jungle for his quest, I take on some of the quests in the general area. I solve a mystery with the boos in the cemetery when one of them seems to be a fake that we have to reveal through their unsynchronized movements, and then move over to the ice area, which only has 2 quests actually. 1, to beat the casino game located there, and 2, hit a pitch off of Mr. Blizzard, the all-star baseball pitcher. Hey now, if you're so good at pitching, why weren't you in Mario Baseball then? Maybe for the next Mario Baseball game if they do ever decide to make another one. I then decided to take on the Horror Condo, another location with multiple quests and objectives, but I ran into a problem during one of the quests when I actually ran out of mushrooms. It was still very early in this Yoshi run, and I admittedly got a minigame that can actually be kind of hard to win, so I actually had to restart the run in the quest I was currently on. Oh well, we'll just attribute this to bad luck, I guess. Back at the condo, we have 3 quests to take care of, all of which involve needing to leave and travel to other parts of the map to do something. We find out the ghosts of this region have forgotten their one job of haunting the mansion, so we have to bring them back to appease Sniffet. We need to pick up an action figure toy for Lantern Ghost at the Shroom City item shop, and for Ninji, we need to pick up a DVD for him of this city's latest craze, Toad Force V, a phenomenon that you'll be hearing a lot about during this game, and is lore you'll probably have to pay attention to a little bit if you want to complete all the quests in this game. Don't worry, I wouldn't say it's a lot of information you need, but just familiarizing yourself with certain names and quotes should be more than enough here. We pick up the DVD from an obsessed Toad Force V fan who lives in the Mushroom Condo back in the city area. I guess this guy apparently bought every single special edition copy of this DVD for some reason. I mean, hey, at least he's just giving us the copy and not forcing us to buy it, so he's not as bad as all those other video game scalpers out there, but still, come on, get a better hobby, dude. It's at this point I decided to go to the jungle finally, but once again, Bowser and Koopa Kid decide to go on a warping tirade and send me to the beach area. Probably the most annoying area to venture through, only because there's only one way to get there, and it's separated by a long stretch of spaces, so you have to spend some time rolling dice to get there. I decided to try and take on the Dueling Tower, a 3-floor dueling experience that requires you to win 3 duel games without losing all of your lives if you want to clear the entire location and all the quests involved with it. I'll go ahead and say it, I did lose all of my lives here again, but only because one of the duel minigames sucks ass. More on that later. So, back to the start I go, I guess. Wow, 2 game overs and I hadn't even done the Yoshi quest yet. I will say, as annoying as incidents like this can be, I do promise that the game isn't usually this rough, although the map warping can be very obnoxious. Usually once you get a run going with a backlog of at least 10 mushrooms, you can honestly be cruising pretty efficiently for a while, especially if you can win at least 90% of the minigames, and I'd say only a small handful of them are really even providing a challenge anyway, so don't let these factors sour any impressions too much. Okay, Yoshi, take 3 time. I don't even dilly-dally here, I do actually go straight to the jungle with no distractions, and head to the lake, where I come across everyone's favorite blue Loch Ness monster of the Mario series, Dory, who honestly just wanted a dinosaur buddy to hang out with. Well, thankfully Yoshi fits that bill, so yay, another simple quest to complete. Also, apparently this Dory is male, as I'm pretty sure Dory in other games is referred to as female, which I guess is another case where multiple Dorys exist with different genders, much like another cutie reptile we know. And while I'm still in the jungle, I take care of the remaining quests I have, which result in me having a little dance party with some Shy Guy locals, or Shy Girl locals, as we find out later in the credits that these are female Shy Guys apparently. And then we also do another Shroom Lock mystery quest where we have to find a Kiki's uncle who has apparently been kidnapped. Although in reality, he faked the whole thing just to play a game because he wanted someone to solve the riddle of where he was located, as he so cleverly coded in the message he wrote. I next decide to go back to the desert to take care of the remaining quests there, starting with Pokey, who has some more riddles we have to solve, although they are not so much riddles, but incredibly obvious Mario trivia facts, so not much to see here. I also check out the Mushroom Field and Mushroom Stadiums to compete against both Hammer Bro and Bullet Bill to a hammer toss and foot race respectively, both of which pretty much require button mashing, but not a lot of button mashing, so I don't imagine this should be that hard for you, even if you aren't the greatest button masher. And finally, we find a lone hammer on the ground, which we pick up, spin around with it, and get whisked away to a random pyramid hideout where we find a Magic Koopa who just so happens to be the legendary Game Mage. We have to play another casino game for this quest, and yes, while it is luck-based, this is actually a game that I kind of enjoy because it has a small bit of strategy associated with it, where you need to position your cards carefully and eliminate all of the cards of one suit to get credit for it and its particular coin multiplier. And hey, I actually did pretty well in this attempt too, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, with that done, that's another quest done and another area taken care of as well. At this point, I only had the remaining quests I had left in the city, the entire beach area, and the Bowser quest remaining, plus one other desert quest that you can only access from a beach route for some reason. I decided to head back to the city, do a relatively early game quest where you need to get some coal for the train at the train station, which requires you to go to a vending machine, of all places, to pick up some and deliver the fuel back to Goomba. And after that's done, I start to head towards the beach, going on a slight detour to take care of that isolated desert quest I mentioned earlier, where I need to help Klepto open a treasure chest with a 4-digit number lock on it, and you have to figure out the combination. Do not worry, as I'm sure you likely feared needing to go all over the map to find this combination. But in reality, if you pay attention to the words of the NPC, it might be easier to figure out than you think. I finally make it to the beach after taking that unfortunate game over much earlier in the playthrough and start taking care of some of the loose ends here. I help Shroomlock solve a mystery of who dragged him into the sea, it being the obvious culprit of Blooper since he was the only suspect with literal appendages capable of dragging. I also visit Blooper himself at his lighthouse, who asks us to challenge him in a duel minigame, likely getting us ready for our next attempt at the duel tower from earlier. And then I solved some basic math problems with Mechakoopa, the creator of Mechakoopa's theorem, which states... Honestly, I have no idea what the hell that theorem would be, but I'm sure it's probably something blasphemous. And with that, it's finally time for my rematch at Duel Tower, and I'll be honest, once again, this didn't go that well. I don't know what it is, but Volley Bomb was easily my most failed minigame of this run. I just really hate the way this game was designed. The computer player just knows the best way to manipulate the bomb, and I swear, sometimes just simply hitting it can be hard. I lost this like 10 separate times before I finally got up my successful run, and that was not a good feeling. Kinda funny that my opponent for that duel was Salvo the Slime though. Seriously, that's a Yoshi's Island callback I never thought I would see again. But yeah, after 3 duel minigames and taking out the likes of Womp, Salvo, and Little Mouser, I finally got my wins and can finally put this tower behind me. I still had a few more things to clean up here, but unfortunately Koopa Kid and Bowser weren't going to give me that option, so they warped me back to the desert. How fun. Because of this, I decided to take on the other 2 Shroom City quests that I had left. One being at the Thwomp's residence, who was apparently robbed while he was out of his house, and Shroomlock decides to help him figure out who did the crime. Just to realize that Thwomp was lying the whole time because he can't physically leave his house, therefore has no social acquaintances or friends, and desperately wanted some people to hang out with. Dang, how sad. I actually feel kinda sorry for the little block dude. And for the last quest of the city area, we need to help a Galoomba named Goombob get a gift for a girl he likes named Goom Betty. So we have to head all the way back to the beach area, another reason why I really didn't want to leave it when I did, because I knew I'd have to make this trip, and I didn't want to go back and leave a second time. But yeah, we head back, pick up a shell from the shore, go back to Goombob's place again, and then give it to him, who will now hand it over to his lovely sweetheart. And hey, look, a romantic subplot that doesn't end in tragedy. What a nice change of pace for this game. Oh god, I hope there isn't a quest needing us to install soundproof walls in their house to cover up the sounds of them having sex. Back to the beach we go! Only 3 more quests left. Let's get them done, shall we? First off, we have Dolphin, who is training to become a comedian, but he needs a little more confidence to really get things moving. So, for him, we have to listen to his comedy routine and make appropriate reactions to his jokes, laughing at the right times during the punchlines, while also not overly laughing either, as it'll be obvious that we're faking it. His jokes were honestly pretty good though, so personally I think he didn't really need us, but still, confidence boosting is a very fickle thing after all. I mean, the same pretty much can be said for Cheep Cheep as well, as he's trying really hard to be a very good swimmer, but can't seem to bring that drive during an actual race. So we decide to help him out by competing against him and intentionally losing to him, but in a non-obvious way of course, to show that he is really the top fish of the pack, or school, I guess is the more appropriate term. I did actually fail this game at first because I kind of forgot the tempo you need to move at to start, but on attempt number 2, I picked it up just fine. And last, but certainly not least, we have Lakitu, and, well, I did this quest last for a very particular and specific reason. You see, Lakitu is a fan of Toad Force V, that show we learned about earlier, but he needs help remembering a line from a particular episode. So we have to go back to Mushroom Condo to learn that line from the obsessed fan we met earlier, which again was all the way back in the city, and then once we learn the line, we once again go back to the beach again to inform Lakitu. Ugh, I swear, these trips from the beach to the city are absolutely brutal, and easily the worst part of these quests. It's just such a long trip, and if you don't land on dice spaces, you could be playing a couple of minigames during these trips as well. And let's not even forget the possibility of Bowser showing up. Ugh. Yeah, I'll always defend this game from being declared the worst Mario Party title, but I'm definitely not oblivious to its problems or flaws either, and this definitely could have used more time to cook, that's for sure. And with that quest done, it's finally time to visit the Koopa King himself to finish off the remaining quests in this game. So we head on back to the city from the beach, again, and hop into Bowser's hideout to take on his challenges. Now, like I mentioned before, he will periodically open these warp pipes throughout the game, and you can technically take care of these and do them in any order you want to as well. I just decided to do them all here at the end, and I let my chat decide the order that I would do these in. Now, most of these quests will come in two parts. For the first part, you have some kind of trial or mission to do, some of which require you picking the correct options, and even one requiring you to do another fetch quest of all things. At least the location isn't at the damn beach again, I swear to God. Do make sure you complete these trials successfully, though, as if you don't, you'll have to sit through a bunch of dialogue to try them over again. And remember, that's not even all you have to do for these either. You still have Phase 2 of these quests, which will usually be a minigame of some kind. When you complete everything, you'll be given a gadget, and the ability to work on another quest. Now, while you will have some duel games, and even a casino game to do here, you'll also be treated to a different kind of minigame that you'll be doing for the first time, a Koopa Kid minigame. For these games, you're actually given a roulette beforehand that, when struck, will give you a number of Koopa Kids you have to take down in that next minigame. So the actual length of the game in question can actually vary a bit depending on how many you get. I think it's required that 30 is the minimum here, so you'll never strike it so lucky that you get like 2 Koopa Kids or anything like that. No, you'll have to do some work for these, but I wouldn't say any of these are really too hard, so you should be more than fine, all things considered. As for the quests themselves, here are some of the silly things we get to do with Bowser. We have to pick out an expensive accessory for him at the item shop that we think he will love, based on the clues he gives us. We get challenged to shoot 3 goals on Bowser as a goalkeeper, which seems nearly impossible except for the fact that you can simply kick the ball under him. We play a game of chance, which is basically just Shell Game from Mario Party 1. We play another game of chance where we quite literally pick cards and try to figure out if they are higher or lower than the next card we get. We get tested on our immaculate Toad Force V knowledge, which, as I told you, it was important to learn that stuff, so hopefully you did. We also assist Shroomlock in questioning Bowser on where he might have hidden a painting that he stole. I actually end up failing this mission every time I play this game, it seems like, because the wording for one of his alibis is just incredibly misleading, I think. But you really have to examine the clues closely and try not to think too hard about word choice. You also have to tell Bowser some jokes to keep him warm while he's outside freezing to death in a snowstorm. Seriously, Bowser, I know you breathe fire, but that doesn't exactly keep your outer body warm, dude. I also failed this mission because I swear, one of the wrong answers I think is more funny than the actual answer. Although, I guess that's largely dependent on tone more than anything. And last, we have a rather interesting quest where we have to duel against a monster Bowser has created in his lab. A choice between a scary monster and a really scary monster, and you have to choose which one you want to battle. Naturally, you'd want to pick the scary monster, but I always pick the really scary option just because of the scene that follows.
Ha, you poor fool, your doom is sealed. For this monster is, in fact, very, very scary. Now witness my very scary monster. Yes, it is.
Puffin! Puffin!
I love how he's still smiling. Oops, pretend that didn't happen.
Wait, was that the wrong monster?
Next time, just pick the scary monster.
Yeah, it is annoying because you have to skip through all that dialogue again, but I don't know, I think it's pretty funny and is worth seeing every time I play this game. Once all the scenarios are done, there is still apparently one more gadget missing, and Bowser will only let us have it if we do one last Koopa Kid minigame. So we challenge him and his Koopa Kids, manage to eliminate all of them in one last bout, and obtain absolute victory, forcing Bowser to give back the last gadget, and put a final close to this story mode. We get a quick epilogue of all the characters in this game and what becomes of them, and then at that point, well, it's pretty much over. Game complete. Now, there are some additional modes in this game, much like you would expect with any other Mario Party game, but I wouldn't say these modes are entirely necessary for a game completion, more just like extra content. Some of the highlights, though, are Minigame Attack, a mode where you try to clear as many minigames as you can in a giant streak to earn coins you can use to purchase some additional gadgets and unlockables. There's Duel Dash, a very basic best-of duel competition between you and another player. And finally, there is Bowser Land, kind of an interesting mode where you ride on a trolley track and play Koopa Kid minigames, but along the way a certain number of different things could happen, which could vastly affect your winnings, not to mention the number of Koopa Kids themselves that you have to take on during the games. It's also worth mentioning that when you play minigames outside of Shroom City, some of them become a bit different in terms of how they play out. In Shroom City, to keep the game moving, every minigame has a set score to aim for, where once you obtain it, the game stops and gives you the win. However, outside of the mode, it becomes more of an endurance and high score affair, which I personally think is pretty cool. Especially with some of the minigames that are in this game, like Amplified, Floret, and Sort Stack. Also, don't forget about the gadgets. All the gadgets we collected in the story mode are here too, and while some of them are incredibly simple to the point of, why would you use this? I don't know, I think there is some charm with some of these, especially if you think of them less as gameplay and more like trophies of some kind. Some of my favorite gadgets are still the mini soccer game, which I think just looks hilarious, and the one where you try to cut wires in an effort to disarm a bomb. It's just some really silly stuff that I think is worth taking a look at. Now, obviously, since this was made as more of a single-player experience, there is still multiplayer here too, and some rather unique options for it as well. However, that is not really the focal point of this challenge, so I'm not really going to focus on it here. And finally, for those wondering about the credits, and if you don't really consider the character epilogue to be the official ending of this game, there are actually credits you can buy in the game's currency shop for 2,000 coins, which, as alluded to before, you can get coins pretty easily from the side modes, which is why I didn't really consider these credits to be the official end for this game for this challenge, since it just seems like a very random extra step to do. So I didn't do that when I first played this for GBAce. However, I did go back later because I felt a little uneasy about that decision, even if I felt justified in making that call at first. Plus, I also wanted to get bonus footage for these extra modes, so I just did a short session later on where I showcased some of the extra stuff, adding that extra time to my timer as well, just to be fair. And then, of course, I showed the credits to it once I actually earned enough coins for them. But yeah, that was Mario Party Advance, and honestly, I do still think this is a good game. I don't think it's an amazing game by any stretch, but it definitely gets way too much hatred from people, I believe. I get that it's not really a true Mario Party game, and if that's what you're more into, fine. But I don't think developers should feel obligated to stick to the same formula every single time, though, especially if they're doing a spin-off title anyway, which this honestly felt more like that than anything else. After all, Mario Party 7, 8, and even Mario Party DS stuck with the classic formula, so it's not like this game shifted direction in a major way or anything. Heck, even Mario Party 9, for as much of a departure as that was, I still think it was a good game at the end of the day, but probably should have been more of a one-off than an actual continuation of the series. After all, when they doubled down in Mario Party 10, that was probably where I felt Mario Party kind of lost its identity for a while, a problem that wasn't really rectified until Super Mario Party on the Switch. But I digress. I think Mario Party Advance has a lot of charm and potential, though, not just because of its unique gameplay approach, but even in how it presents itself. The visuals and graphics look honestly really solid, some of my favorite instances of GBA sprite work actually. The music and sound presentation is really good, and sure, there's a lot of remixes from other Mario Party games here, but they're nice remixes and it's fun to hear them. Plus, some of the original songs are nice too. Also, the dialogue during the story mode is just very engaging. The game can be funny when it wants to be, it can get a little deep when it wants to be, and sometimes it can just be kind of fun to see a character's reaction or interaction to something you say, even if it ends up wasting a turn or mushroom in the process. I don't know, as corny and basic as some of the quests can be, Shroom City can honestly seem like a pretty cool and chill place to spend some time, I gotta say. As I've alluded to though, this game is definitely far from flawless, and there are points where the Shroom City mode can be a bit repetitive at times, and almost a little tedious. As fun as the minigames are, it can seriously get annoying having to break mid-quest to do a minigame when you are just trying to get to one location on the other side of the map. So I think they needed to be spread out a little more, maybe after every 5 turns instead of after every 3 turns. Also, those damn Koopa Kid and Bowser events, they definitely needed to happen much less often, and the warping punishment just needed to be removed entirely. It's so brutal getting that event when you may have so much ground to cover in traveling over the map in the first place. And last but not least, there's just so much back and forth travel for certain quests. I would have much rather had more interesting and engaging challenges and minigames taking place at a location in question, but like 45% of these quests are literally go somewhere else and come back, and those can get really obnoxious, especially the ones that have you going in between the beach and city so many frickin' times. So yeah, while the game had a good formula, it's just needed some tweaks to minimize some of the agony. That's all. In fact, I'm actually going to give a quick shout out to the YouTube channel Planet Clue, who made an essay video about Mario Party Advance and the unfair hatred that it gets sometimes. In this video, they talk about a mod of this game that they made to kind of ease some of the tediousness that the game pushes, as well as just flat out renaming the game entirely to give it less of a Mario Party identity, something they alluded to being a reason for why people likely didn't vibe with it as much. It's a very insightful video that I really respect as someone who also feels like this game gets a lot of unfortunate and undeserved bashing. Also, consider checking out their mod of the game too if it's still available, as that may be the definitive way to play this game moving forward. Okay, I think it's time for the scoring now, huh? For overall game quality, I'll give this a 3 out of 5. I think it's an alright game, maybe not for everybody, but I think it's definitely worth an acknowledgement at least, despite its flaws and huge departure from the series. For personal enjoyment, I'm actually knocking this up to a 4 out of 5, just because I'm someone who can definitely enjoy and appreciate this game despite its flaws, and I personally had a lot of fun with it during this particular playthrough too. Volley bomb struggles and Bowser warping frustrations aside, of course. And for difficulty, I'll go with a 2 out of 5, but more so due to the tediousness of the late game and the fact that it does have some luck-based scenarios involved, so it's definitely not free, but still fairly easy for the most part. And well, that's going to do it for Mario Party Advance. This was, of course, the only Mario Party game on the system, not counting Mario Party e-reader for obvious reasons, so that'll do it for this Mario sub-series. But obviously, we have a lot of other Mario games to play though at some point, so I'm sure we'll see plenty of the plumber later on. Not to mention, I'm sure there's some other board game titles as well as more minigame collections too, so the spirit of Mario Party will truly never die. But, for now, let's say a fond farewell to Shroom City and take a look at the next game we'll be playing for this challenge. Okay guys, thank you for watching this summary, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a comment and or like on the video, as those will really help me in these videos out. And stay tuned for future summaries of this series. If you also want to watch full playthroughs of these games for this challenge, check out the video description for a full playlist of everything that's been uploaded and exported so far. And if you're curious about what I'm playing right now for the challenge, be sure to stop by my Twitch channel to see what my current progress is. Just be warned, I'll be a lot further ahead of where we are for these summaries, so keep that in mind. This has been SlimKirby in the GBA series, and I'll talk to you fine people next time. Later, folks.